The natural thing would be to do like South Korea did.
You're thinking 18 months, even with all the work that you've already done to this point and the planning that you are taking with lots of different potential vaccinations and building up for that now?
Yeah, so there's an approach called RNA vaccine that people like Moderna, CureVac, and others are using. That in 2015, we'd identified that as very promising for pandemics and for other applications as well. And so if everything goes perfectly with the RNA approach, we could actually beat the 18 months. We don't want to create unrealistic expectations. The efficacy of vaccines in older people is always a huge challenge. You know, it turns out the flu vaccine isn't that effective in elderly people. Most of the benefit comes from younger people not spreading it because they're vaccinated, and that benefits on a community basis the elderly. Here, we clearly need a vaccine that works in the upper age range because they're most at risk of that. And doing that so that you amp it up so it works in older people and yet you don't have side effects. You know, if we have 1 in 10,000 side effects, that's, way more, 700,000, people who will suffer from that. So really understanding the safety at gigantic scale across all age ranges, pregnant, male, female, undernourished, existing comorbidities, it's very, very hard. And that actual decision of, okay, let's go and give this vaccine to the entire world, governments will have to be involved because there will be some risk and indemnification needed before that can be decided on.
Let me ask you sort of rapid fire a bunch of questions that we get different answers from depending on every person we ask, but I think you have better sources. What is the mortality rate? What is happening right now? How many people do you think it kills percentage-wise?
Because you don't see all the cases, you get the denominator wrong. It's clearly, 1%, 1.2%. Germany is a great example where they got their testing act together and they have interventions, and they're at about that rate. The China data after the Wuhan overload came in at about that rate. Places like Spain and Italy aren't testing broadly yet. Their testing is even more limited than ours, which is still completely misprioritized. So, it's not much more than 1.2% if you have a fully functioning health system to treat those who get serious respiratory problems.
What about asymptomatic spread? I've read that anywhere from 10 to 25% of the spread could be coming from people who don't show symptoms. What do you think it is?
Yeah, that's we have this Seattle Coronavirus Assessment Network that's really going to understand that. I think it's very unlikely the numbers are anywhere that high. I know there were studies, but the way they were done, chest CT scans are going to show you other diseases. It's very unlikely. There's a lot of asymptomatics who never become symptomatic, and yet they're infecting people. And the work, and there's many countries that the foundation has gathered together on this, including the UK and Germany, and we're going to get some other sites in the US on this. We need to know that number because that deeply affects rebounds when opening up. And there is some data that suggests it's not a gigantic number, but very, very important to pin that down.
In terms of testing, you keep saying that that's a really important thing in order for us to kind of get back to business. I know of healthcare workers here in the New York area who have been exposed but can't get tests. They may not have symptoms yet. When do we get to the point where we actually have enough tests that are out there and are able to really track this in a better situation?
Well, the access to the back-end capacity of what's called a PCR machine is completely unmanaged. And so, you can have somebody without symptoms who gets tested every day in some wealthy community, and that definitely is going on. And you can have a healthcare worker, like you say, waiting 3 or 4 days. Anytime the queue is over 24 hours, that's complete mismanagement because the value of the result is far less worthwhile when you're not getting it very, very quickly. The best case is the PCR test goes positive before you're symptomatic or infectious, and then you can act in such a way that you never infect anyone else. The natural thing would be to do like South Korea did and create a unified system. That we haven't gotten any interest from the federal level. So the thinking is to create a website that you go in and enter your situation, and it would give you a priority number. And then hopefully all the people who control the capacity limit the priority level that they accept, so they're giving these very quick results and to the right people. And until we have that, we're in big trouble, because as a percentage of 330 million, we're not going to be able to test many people, even with the capacity we'll have with the new machines and the so-called strip test. We won't every week be able to test more than a few percent of the population. And so to see rebound, it's got to be exactly the right few percent.
The foundation has also spent a lot of time working on education and watching kids out of school right now, watching governors in some states already canceling school for the rest of the year, wondering what that means for the fall. I wonder that same question there. There are kids who are able to get online, have school teachers and school systems that are set up online, have adults who are in the household who can help them out and kind of push them on their way. But it seems like that's another big area of inequality. What should we do about that?
Well, it's a big problem, because if your school doesn't have that online capability, you've lost 3 months of learning. I do think school will be able to resume in the fall, but I don't think this school year there's going to be any significant attendance. Maybe in the summer people would do something special, but that would be very hard to do. As you say, most of the private schools, they're used to online. They've made sure all their students have the device and the connectivity. Different school districts have decided some don't do online learning because it would be unjust in terms of the kids who don't have access. And so that's really a dilemma. There are philanthropists, Ray Dalio, Jeff Bezos, and many others, who are trying to fill that gap, get some devices and connectivity out there. But, in the end, the low-income students will be hurt the most by these school closures.
In terms of being an investor, obviously you're a well-known investor. Not that you're probably spending that much time thinking about that, but have you changed your investment strategy at all since this all took place?
No, I haven't put much thought into that, and I'm able to delegate a lot of that. There are whole industries that are going to have reduced demand even after supply comes back. And, capital spending, cars, houses, all those things, it's hard to think that the general animal spirits will be anywhere near what they were before this got started. But I haven't mapped that into, what it means for the market.
And Bill, you mentioned that you think we will be going back to school in the fall. Do you think people will be back at stadiums, that they'll be getting on airplanes, maybe going on vacations at that point too?
Well, I need maybe to kick off a discussion about this, what opening up looks like, which is, at the earliest for the U.S., I would say at the end of May. But the discussion of which activities bring societal value and how much risk of rebound they bring, that's something everybody should participate in. And, I'm starting to write up my thoughts about that over the next week. I don't think going to big, say, public sports types events, that the economic benefit relative to the risk, that will work out until we're back in normal times. I do think manufacturing, construction, schools, where you adopt protocols that are helpful there. We see most businesses in China opening up. We see places like South Korea, who had a medium-sized epidemic, able to run things. And so really, how do you draw that line for that period that's going to be longer than we want it to be? That eventually the government's going to have to take all the expert input and create a new regime for what's going on that's extremely sensitive to how well it's working through the quick turnaround prioritized testing.
Bill, I want to thank you very much for your time today. We truly appreciate it.